I have like three questions that I think are all interrelated. So I don't know how I want to ask them. So, I was going to ask you about when should I, so I'm listening to this and should I be using a GRC tool? And I'm sure that the answer is in it depends. And I think some of the things are going to be number of standards that you're complying with, which types of standards, how many audits you're subject to, things of that nature. So let's kind of like flesh that in. So we're ISO 27001 certified as an organization. We're not yet on a tool like yours, right? There's a company that's just doing 27001. Is there enough value add to make that worthwhile? Or do I have to get to a point where I want to layer another SOC 2 or it's a Center for Internet Security controls? Like, where do we get to the point? Like, how does a company know if they're going to get the return on implementing Hyperproof?
Yeah, I think we see two different scenarios there that we've identified. One is actually for smaller organizations, which are needing a little bit more in the way of prescriptive help. Because what we do is we have all the standards in there. We work, with the compliance, the standard bodies, and we keep it up to date out of our product management team. So like, there's some insurance part to, the fact that we've always got the latest requirements for you, and we ship with our own illustrative control. So effectively, we're giving you some guidance to use there. And I would also add, we ship with a methodology, because a lot of the times when you're first getting compliant, like, how do I even get started? Well, we have a methodology around how you bring your program from conception into reality. And so that whole set of interlinked capability, super helpful for an organization getting started. And in fact, I'll just say, that's the stuff we shipped with when we first shipped. The stuff we've been doing since that time, and we've been really busy over the last 9 months, has much more geared to the latter part of your question, John, around, I've got multiple programs. I have to crosswalk those together so that I could leverage the proof, the people, and the controls that I've already put in place. Because what I don't want to do is start setting up new controls every time I have to do a new audit. That is kind of backwards. So scaling out your compliance program, sometimes we call it the compliance journey. That's another great usage of Hyperproof. So we find both cases.
Gotcha. And so if we get to that backside, right? So let's make this more tangible for folks. Right. So let's say that I'm ISO 27001 certified or SOC 2, and I'm using your tool. Like, what's going into your tool and how's it getting in there? Right. So you talk about integrations and you talk about automation. You've used both those terms. So I'm assuming those integrations and automation are going to be part of the way that we're going to get this evidence into the system. So can we talk about that? Like, and get down to like hey, user account management reviews, or incident response, or firewall rule-based reviews, or whatever it is. So like, we're really talking more in more concrete terms.
Yeah, so there's two kinds of integrations that we're doing right now. The first is the one that we started with, which is a set of, you would call it almost document-based integrations to document stores. So Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, SharePoint, a lot of evidence is already collected in SharePoint. What we want to do is make it so that if a large body of people in your organization already have a process that they're following to drop in that evidence, it's really easy to bring it into Hyperproof. So those are out-of-box types of integrations. Another class of out-of-box integrations we have are with communication tools. So you can actually take the conversation that you're having inside Hyperproof, because we have collaboration in the product, but you can export that over to Slack and have that conversation in Slack. That's in the product now. We're adding Microsoft Teams. So there's those kind of integrations. And then what's more recent than that is there's a general purpose integration framework that we have with the product that will allow you to touch any source. So you want to get user logs out of AWS or Azure, or you want to get some security scans out of Qualys, or whatever you want. Those ones are ones that you can actually author. And here's the key. You can author those integrations into Hyperproof already. You've been able to do it for the last year by doing it in your own environment, right? You can write some Java or JavaScript or whatever it is, because we have APIs. The thing that's new that we're bringing imminently, it's coming in the next 8 weeks or so, is the ability for us to run those integrations instead of you. So we'll give you a little code window, and we'll say, hey, what data do you want to pull out of Qualys? Let's say, okay, where do you want it to go? Do you want it to go into this set of controls? We have a concept in the product called labels that you can use as a store for your evidence, and then you can attach labels to multiple controls. So there's a lot of ways to do it, and we will let you customize that integration, and we will operate it for you. And that's the benefit of the new capability that we're bringing.
What do you mean by so I have this automation? Let's say so let's say we're using Nessus, and let's say I've got and this is what we do. We have a requirement in our ISMS that we scan our end consultant laptops and once every 30 days. Okay. So how would that integration work? So I need to scan those laptops. I need to make sure that we say that if we have vulnerabilities of a certain type, above a certain CVSS level, that those are going to need to be addressed. The process is IT reaches out to the consultants. Sometimes those laptops are not visible to them. They've got to make them visible. They've got to make the change, and then we have to close that loop. So would your product provide value prop there? And if so, kind of like take me through what that would look like.
Yeah, so basically what you would do is, you would figure out that body of evidence needs to get mapped to a certain set of controls that Hyperproof has managed. So what you would do in our automation environment is you're basically tackling the RESTful API that provider has. So basically we would call the API, effectively do like a search and search and get those information and those logs, and then we would bring it in. Now that part happens automatically. Once it comes in, then you get to use the rest of the infrastructure inside Hyperproof. And what I mean by that is we have health calculation. So you can start to calculate health of this control on the basis of evidence that you brought in. You can get people to review it. So we're right now, you can mention people and say, hey, I'd say mention you, John, and I'd say, hey, John, can you take a look at this? We're very close to the ability to peg a date on that and actually make it a formal task. Right now, it's mentioned and you get a notification. We've just shipped in the last release the ability to start creating these tasks, which would put some teeth into that and say, hey, John, you got to really get back to me in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And on that basis, I'll decide whether we're good or not on this control. And on that basis, the dashboard will get updated so that I know and my management knows that the compliance program is actually moving forward.
Gotcha. Does that include some kind of workflow capability? So, so as an example, if I needed to report that I had closed that, and then somebody else needed to sign off on the way I closed it, the way I hit that, or we had user account management reviews or something of that nature. Same idea.
Same idea. We're doing that through a concept called tasks. You would assign tasks to people and say, can you please approve it as part of this task? And then they would do that, and then you might not update the health until they approve it to the final approval.
Gotcha.